No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show starts now.
It was not a banner day for the NHL and AHL clubs of Winnipeg. The Jets, they are defeated at the hands of the Calgary Flames, despite, if you turn that game off, Ezzy, after 20 minutes, you're probably feeling pretty good about the circumstances surrounding this hockey game. But unfortunately for the Winnipeg Jets,
I'm already drinking, Dave.
These are 60-minute hockey games. You've got to play, as the cliche says, a full 60 to win. The Jets did not, and thus they lost. And their AHL affiliate, their farm club here in Winnipeg, in front of almost 7,700 fans wearing superhero costumes. They did not end up being superheroes. They have Moose, although admirable to fall in a tight game against the Admirals, Ezzy. They lose 4-3, but that's a little bit more understandable given the fact that the Admirals have not lost in 2024, 17 straight games for the wins for the Nashville farm team. So this, of course, is the Illegal Curve post-game show. I am Dave Manouk. He is Ezzy Ginsburg, and we're here to talk about the parent club, of course, the Winnipeg Jets, and their win streak coming to an end after 3 games as it ends at the hands of the Calgary Flames, the team that coming into today's game had lost 3 straight and was starting to see their playoff fortunes take a nosedive because, unfortunately for them, the LA Kings had won 3 straight coming into today's game. So they were 9 points back of LA for that final spot in the Pacific playoff race, but they pick up a big 2 points courtesy of today's 6-3 defeat of the Winnipeg Jets. So, Ezzy, what are your early takeaways from tonight's effort?
Well, it was sure. Yeah, it wasn't a very good effort by the Jets. And we just had the comment up from Getter Done. You waste a Sean Monahan natural hat trick in the first period, a hat trick against his former team, right? So, I mean, you got the start that you wanted, right, Dave? Like the Flames score the first goal, but then the Jets respond right after and they kept it going. And, you know, I can't remember the last time the Jets allowed 5 goals in regulation because, of course, the 6th goal was an empty netter. So I'm not including that one, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the first time in a long time that Connor Hellebuyck has allowed more than 3 goals. And yes, it wasn't, you know, his best night.
32 games, I think, to be precise, Ezzy.
Right. So that's a long time and a pretty incredible streak, right? Like that, you know, that's something that, you know, Hellebuyck is always going to be able to, you know, have on his resume, right? But, you know, the second period is obviously where it fell apart for the Jets. And the third period wasn't much better either. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you just didn't have a lot of sustained offense in those final 2 periods. And, you know, the Jets took some sloppy penalties. Obviously, you know, we'll get into, you know, the Brendan Dillon, Neil Pionk pairing. They had a rough night tonight. Ooh. But, you know, the Scheifele Connor Velarde line had a rough night as well. They were generating offense, but defensively, you know, I thought especially against that Michael Backlund line, and that Backlund line includes Blake Coleman and Andrew Mangiapane. Mangiapane's become a bit of a Jets killer. You remember the season opener, Dave, he had 2 or 3 points, right? So, I mean, Mangiapane is an excellent offensive player, but, you know, you mentioned it earlier. Not only did the Flames lose 3 games in a row, they were outscored 11-3. So they're trying to keep their very slim playoff hopes alive. I'm not sure if they're going to end up doing it, but, you know, they're trying to stay pace with teams like the Seattle Kraken, right? Who are battling for that last wildcard spot in the Western Conference. So, you know, it just wasn't good enough. That was one of the weaker performances I've seen from the Jets at 5-on-5. Like, look, at the power play was fine. We know that Sean Monahan scored on the power play. So, I mean, you know, the Jets kept, you know, the good feelings rolling from the game against the Vancouver Canucks, but it's just not going to cut it when, you know, you're spending 80% of the game in the defensive zone. And I'm obviously, you know, being a little bit tongue in cheek here, Dave. It wasn't 80%, but it sure felt like that at certain points. Like it just wasn't the Jets. I didn't think slowed the Flames down enough in the neutral zone. And I just thought they were very passive today. That's kind of the word I would use about the Jets. You didn't see that intensity like you saw on Saturday against the Canucks, Dave.
Yeah.
And you obviously knew. I mean, nobody thought that this was going to be, you know, as passionate of a game as it was in Vancouver. But look, give the Flames credit. They played like a desperate team. They went down a couple goals in the first period, and you knew that, you know, in that dressing room, they were saying like, okay, guys, like we got to tie this up. We don't want to lose 4 games in a row, especially in front of the home crowd at the Saddle Dome, right? So give the Flames credit. They responded. They had a big pushback, and it just didn't seem like, the Jets had a pushback for the Flames pushback in this game.
Yeah, and I'm going to highlight this comment by CMAC because I was curious, and in fact, I was wrong because my assessment in the Jets pregame report, which of course is available on illegalcurve.com at every Jets game day, was that I thought Laurent Brossoit would get the net. He hasn't played, he hasn't played since that Philadelphia game, Ezzy. So that was either 9 or 11 days ago, and somewhere in that range. And Connor Hellebuyck had played the last 3. And I know that he plays a lot of afternoon games, but CMAC here is writing, why did they start Helly today? Because he likes afternoon games? ? Gotta get LB in the net more often if you want Helly fresh for the playoffs. Now, I understand they're playing Minnesota tomorrow. It's a back-to-back. So there's always that, you want to give your starter the best chance to win. And of course, the more difficult challenge would generally be the backup. But I was just a little bit surprised just because they have run with Hellebuyck a lot and there's been fair spacing. So you thought maybe you give Brossoit. But again, I understand that they were going to go with, why they went with him, because you give Brossoit the game against the Wild, I guess.
Yeah, and also Hellebuyck was excellent against the Canucks, right? So like you're going with your hotter goaltender, and this is a bit of a unique situation. Like if there was a day between games, Dave, I would have been more surprised. But honestly, I wasn't surprised that they went with Hellebuyck just because of how well he played on Saturday. And also, there's been space between games here, right? Like it's not like the Jets have had, they're not in like an 8-game and 11-day stretch, right?
And they didn't practice yesterday. They canceled practice.
Yeah. So I look, Hellebuyck was not the problem in this
Oh no,
game.
I'm not saying otherwise. I'm not
saying you are. I'm just saying that, I don't, Laurent Brossoit being in net wouldn't have changed anything. It probably would have been uglier, to be honest with you, Dave. That's what I'm trying to say here, right? Yeah. So the Jets are lucky that Hellebuyck was in net this afternoon. It was just not a crisp defensive effort. Like there was just too much time and space out there for the Flames. There were giveaways. And like we said, like, the big knock on the Jets all year long has been the poor power play. Well, the Jets scored 2 power play goals in the first period, and everything was setting up nicely for that second period. And I just thought that they weren't aggressive enough. And again, it basically comes down to, if the Flames are spending that much time in your zone and you're going to give them power plays, and this Flames power play is nothing to write home about. I think they were 29th in the league heading into this game, right? But they've still got talented players like Nazem Kadri and Jonathan Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, Oliver Shillington. What a goal for him. I mean, he's a guy, Dave, you remember when the draft was in Florida, 2015, we thought Shillington was going to be a late first-round pick, and he ended up falling to Calgary in the second round, right? So actually, was he drafted by Calgary? He was, right? Wasn't sure if he was traded or if he was drafted by another team. I'd have to look that up. But Shillington's a really good defenseman. And when you consider that Calgary is expected to trade, Chris Tanev and or Noah Hannafin, it's good that they have Mackenzie Weegar and Oliver Shillington in the back end.
Second round pick by the Flames, Ezzy.
There you go. I couldn't remember if he was traded at some point. That was what was that, 8 years ago now? That's a long time ago, Dave. But Shillington's a good one. He can really skate. So, I mean, I
remember, Ezzy, this was only his 9th game of the season because he had taken some time to be away from the game.
Exactly. And so, a lot of people in the chat have already seen, a lot of people complaining about Neil Pionk's play, saw that on Twitter during the game. Look, it wasn't a good game for him. And look, I think it would be great if the Jets could acquire Chris Tanev. He was really solid for the Flames tonight. I just don't even know if, that's going to materialize. So, Dave, we can talk till we're blue in the face about how good Tanev would look in a Jets jersey, but he could end up being traded to another team. So again, the Jets have to play with the players they currently have. We've talked about this. They're 100% healthy. There's no more excuses here. Morgan Barron, maybe he's not 100% healthy, but he was in the game tonight or this afternoon. So just not a very good effort. And look, the Jets don't have time to respond. The Wild defeated the Canucks 10-7 this afternoon. I'm sure we're going to talk about that at some point. 6 goals for the Wild in the first period, which I don't think anybody saw coming. And it's going to be a grinder tomorrow. The Wild are going to come in. Speaking of teams that have slim playoff hopes, I don't think the Wild are going to be making the playoffs. They're just too far back.
Yeah.
But look, they're still going to be
they've been on a
playing
run
the Jets
though.
hard. They have been on a run. You're right.
Which is why tomorrow's game will not be we thought it would be, a game to watch, obviously, after the Perfetti slash to the or high stick to the face, and that it would be, especially with Minnesota had continued to fall out, because Minnesota has kind of worked their way back into the discussion. As I suspect they're going to be focused on winning and not on shenanigans. You'll probably get some shenanigans, because I don't know that they'll be able to help themselves, but ultimately this is a game that Minnesota needs to take 2 points, and the Jets are going to want to get the stink of this one out of their nostrils. So they're going to try and put forth a good effort, and they're going to need to, because, the word you used, Ezzy, is one that came to me throughout the course of watching this hockey game, was that it was casual. There wasn't an urgency. And whether it was 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, 4-3, 5-3, the Jets just didn't look like the team were desperate enough. And look, the Jets are in a good position, right? I mean, it's, we're not, again, it's always important to remember, we had the comment highlighted. This was not a good effort by the Winnipeg Jets. We are not here to sugarcoat the Jets' effort in today's game. We'll go through it. We'll dissect it in the Betway game recap. We'll talk about all the goals. We'll break down where guys make mistakes. But this team is also coming off of 3 straight wins, right? And you've got the power play finally starting to work. Now, it's funny, ironic, Ezzy, that the power play is starting to work in the 5-on-5 play dips. But, I mean, again, I guess if the 5-on-5 play, which has been consistent for, 50 games this season, this is game 52, but for 52 games for the most part this season, and the power play is starting to work itself out and figure itself out, that's probably a good kind of trade-off, because you can probably get to the 5-on-5 play again, and then ultimately hope that you can keep this power play streak rolling. But yeah, to me, this was a Jets team that just wasn't engaged enough in the game, especially when that second period, the second period really took them out of the game, obviously. And it shouldn't have, because, I mean, they were in it, right? It was a close hockey game. And ultimately they just weren't able to, get back into it. And whether that's on the coaching staff to push to the right buttons and try and get these guys going, there were a couple of chances, obviously, right? But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not horseshoes. It's not close, isn't good enough.
No, and we've got the comment up from Gordy Angus, and I don't think this should be the pile up on Cole Perfetti game. Look, this was not a good game for him, and we know that Rick Bonus's comments about speaking, Dave, about, I know what I'm talking about, but what Mike McIntyre asked Rick Bonus about the ice time, right? And it was reported that, Rick Bonus and the coaching staff talked to specifically Perfetti and Ehlers and what they wanted them to do. The only thing is, it just doesn't match up with specifically Ehlers' production at 5-on-5. And look, if the Jets want to be a Stanley Cup team, I think we know that, the power play's got to be better on a consistent basis. It's only been a couple games here now that the Jets have scored power play goals, but you're right. Now the 5-on-5 play is dipped. So, I mean, there's certainly an argument. We talked about this on Saturday morning show, Dave. There's an argument to be made that the Jets need an upgrade in their top 6 on the wing. And we went over several players. I know, some people on social media didn't really like that we were promoting, Tarasenko as an acquisition, because he's not known as the best defensive player. But he's a great
Slanko.
Well, but he's a great offensive player, right? The guy scores goals, specifically on the power play, right? Maybe not so much this year on Ottawa, even though I think his numbers are still pretty good. So I think the top 6 is an issue for the Jets right now. Who was the best line for the Jets tonight? It was Lowry, Appleton, and Niederreiter. I mean, and when you look at expected goals, that line was the best Jets line when you look at expected goals at 5-on-5. They started off the game and they had some pressure in the flame zone. Like, they're doing their job. You can't expect that line to be the line that's getting, the most goals for you. And that's why this game, I think, was so demoralizing from a Jets fan perspective. You get 2 power play goals from Sean Monahan, you get the natural hat trick. And then there was just a big sag in the Jets play. And, you can make up any excuse you want. You can say, well, the Jets are playing 3 games in 4 days. Well, I mean, the Jets schedule has been spaced out pretty nicely. They were just coming off a, 10 or 11 day all-star player break, right? So I don't think that you can use the condensed schedule, as an excuse at this point. And I don't think you can really use anything as an excuse. You're trying to catch the Dallas Stars for first place in the Central. Dallas did lose today, but they picked up a point. So I believe the Jets are 5 points back now. They do have games in hand,
Right.
but the Stars, like, quietly, I mean, it wasn't too long ago. What was it? 3 weeks ago that the Jets, maybe not 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, the Jets were in first place in the entire league. Right. And so now it's, Dallas that the Jets are chasing. There's lots of games left. The Jets can still catch Dallas. But, they're on a slide here, right? Like you mentioned it, Dave, the Jets, recently won 3 games in a row, but they've lost 6 of 9 now. So this is not just, a game or two. And obviously, the Jets could win tomorrow and turn this around. They've got some easy games coming up, right? Like Chicago's not scaring anybody right now. You still have to respect them. But yeah, for me, the top 6 is a problem. And even though Scheifele, Connor, and Velarde were really good against the Canucks, they were pretty bad tonight. So, and that's got to be a concern if you're Rick Bowness and the coaching staff.
Well, you do wonder if he goes back, as we've talked about, to the Ehlers, Scheifele, and Velarde line that worked so well when Kyle Connor was injured. And so that'll be a big question mark. And we'll see tomorrow if they make, any moves, if they decide to bring Rasmus Kupari into the lineup and maybe try and inject some fresh legs for the Jets. And not to say that, again, like you said, but I mean, if Morgan Barron isn't healthy, if he's dealing with an illness that kept him out of the third period of the game on Saturday, and Rick Bowness did say in his media availability this morning or this afternoon, that there were some other guys who were potentially dealing with illness. So that's obviously that's a factor. I mean, clearly it's a factor if the guys aren't 100% healthy, because it tends to go through the rooms. But look, I mean, ultimately, again, it's funny how you can spin things, right? The Jets have won 3 out of 4, or they've lost 6 of the last 9. So, I mean, it really depends on how you want to look at it. And now tomorrow's game becomes a lot more important, which is why I said the shenanigans, and we're not talking about the movie Office Space, which would be the restaurant from the movie Office Space, but we're not talking about that. We're talking
more flair, Dave, more flair.
Well, we got lots of flair. I got a lot of IC flair here. A picture of the 3 of us, the IC beer, the live sign, an old Manitoba Moose.
This is a live IC beer, though.
That is a live IC beer.
This one's actually open.
That's going down your gullet. But no, I mean, look, this is a fact, is that this team is going to need to be focused tomorrow. There's not going to be any excuses. You have to be able to show.
How the heck did Minnesota score 10 goals? Like I realized Kirill Kaprizov.
Well, they shot the puck. It went into the back of the net 10 times.
10-7, that's an NFL score.
Well, especially considering that, Tyler Myers and the Canucks were so hot under the collar after the refs. They didn't just face the Jets on Saturday night, as apparently they faced the Jets and the refs, which is actually, I mean, I don't want to say I'm incredulous, because I'm generally not anymore, but like I did find it rather amusing to think that Jets fans felt like they were up against the refs, and as did apparently the Vancouver Canucks. So both teams felt like the refs were against them, which is probably a good sign that neither team was really was the beneficiary of favorable calling. But I mean, yeah, that's a wild game. I mean, and I'm not trying to use a pun there, but I think they scored, what did they score, Ezzy? Like 6 goals in a row to win that game in the third period. So Vancouver looked like they were handling their business, kind of getting back. And
I know the Wild scored 6 goals in the first period.
Yeah, and they scored 6 in the third, or 6 or 7. Like they scored they scored 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ezzy, they scored 7 goals in the third period.
Sorry, I got the period wrong. It was the third period.
Yeah. So, I mean,
I wasn't watching that game. I saw someone screenshot something on X.
Okay.
I thought it was the first period, but it was.
But I mean, again, like I said, it's good though, because again, it forces tomorrow's game between the Jets and the Wild to be a game about actually playing hockey and not the stupidity of having to deal with, guys taking cheap shots and that sort of thing. So, I mean, again, whether they target Cole Perfetti or whatnot again, or anything else, we'll see. But, again, I suspect it'll be about hockey tomorrow. So that's probably not a bad thing. Okay, as we should probably get into
Spency is correcting you there. Spency is right. I'm not sure if Spency is live from Festival de Voyageurs.
Oh, Tchotchkes.
Yeah, Tchotchkes. That's where you wear the flair.
Super. You're right.
Spency, what is this, amateur hour? Like, I can't believe we missed that one.
Yeah, that was
both of those movies are great movies. Maybe this is time that we talk about when we saw Jay Chandrasekhar in Buffalo at that pizza place, right,
draft.
Dave?
Yeah,
he was doing stand up across the
beside the arena.
Yeah, that was funny.
And didn't he walk up to you and say, "Hey, aren't you Ezzy Ginsburg from Illegal Curve?"
He did not.
Oh, that was me actually. In front of him, hoping he would notice and say something to us.
I could
That
go
was
for a liter of cola right now, though.
I could go for that was Rob Farva. Anyways, let's get into it. Let's hide Spency's comment. Let's get this recap going because Ezzy, there were a lot of goals that we're gonna have to discuss. So let's get into it. This is the Betway game recap.
The Betway game recap.
The Betway game recap is brought to you, not surprisingly, by Betway, one of the most trusted voices in sports betting, both in Canada and all around the world. Betway is a sports betting app that puts you, the customer, at the forefront with a large selection of betting promotion options in sports, as well as strong promotions and fair odds. What are you waiting for, Ezzy? Head on over to Betway and bet your way. Must be 19 years or older to play, and always, please play responsibly. Well, as it didn't get off to a banner start for the Winnipeg Jets because it was Oliver Shillington.
Yep.
I wanted to call him Killington, but he Killington the Jets with that first goal because the Jets.
Just don't be a Buzz Killington, Dave.
I will try not to be, but the Jets on it, what I would describe charitably as a poor choice for ill-timed line change. I mean, Dylan DeMello makes the initial pass up, I believe, and thinks that the puck is out of the zone, and well, it is out of the zone, and thinks that he's hit his man, so they can kind of make it a safe change. But you got to give Shillington credit. He anticipates, grabs it, and then Pionk and Dylan are kind of caught in the middle, and he just goes around everybody and goes upstairs on Connor Hellebuck. So I mean, it's an unfortunate start early in the game, and it could have really been a tone setter. It wasn't, but you do wonder what Neil Pionk was thinking, considering he was man on man with Shillington, and then almost like looked to his right, saw a guy coming in, but it was already at that point.
It was Mangiapane, and that's the problem, Dave. You mentioned it right at the beginning, breaking down the goal. What happened here was it's a cough up, and Shillington picks up the puck in the neutral zone.
Right,
Mello's going off. Brendan Dillon's coming on, but he's coming on, and he's not at full speed. He's basically flat-footed in a way.
Right. Yeah.
And so Shillington goes by him, and like you said, Pionk, he's skating backwards, but he's kind of turned around because he's looking at Shillington coming with speed, but then he's got Mangiapane, so he's thinking, he might dish the puck to Mangiapane. So, I mean, it's a combination of a kind of a poor line change, a turnover in the neutral zone, and some weak defense by Pionk.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I'm not going to blame this goal entirely on Neil Pionk. And like you said, Oliver Shillington, we talked about it. He's got wheels. He's a good defenseman. And obviously, he's had some trouble early on in his career. So he's a guy that I think, we're always rooting for. Right. So, it was a nice individual effort by Shillington. But yeah, you can't let a guy generate that much speed, from center ice in and just come in untouched. And so, Pionk, could he have, played that a little bit better and taken a little time and space away from Shillington? Yes. But it was essentially a 2-on-1 situation, and give Shillington credit for coming in with a big burst of speed. And, it was a nice goal for him.
Absolutely. And as the one thing that we tend to always focus on, Hellebuck, who probably could have made that save, but he didn't, obviously. And the defenseman, the forwards aren't immune from criticism here. Like, I didn't like the way the first line played that, right? Mark Scheifele's the only guy, like Velarde, who misses the DeMello or mishandles, or whatever you want to call it, the initial pass by Dylan DeMello. If he tips that in and deep, there's no play. So Velarde doesn't kind of handle his assignment, and he and Kyle Connor are just standing there. They're flat-footed. They don't get back aggressively. Mark Scheifele tries to, and he's not. I wouldn't suggest that he's going to get full marks, but he's at least skating. And they may have been at the end of the shift here, but the three of them are gliding. Like, they are fully gliding.
But in their defense, right? Pionk is back.
No, for sure.
And if there's a second defenseman back, there's not really an issue. That's why I was crediting you, Dave, for saying that it was a. I mean, it's easy for us to say it's a bad line change because it resulted in a goal. But you're right. If Velarde tips that puck in, or if he just kind of cradles the puck and spins around and gets it deep, then they're going off for a line change. And I think they were out there for, a good 45 seconds.
Yeah.
From what I remember. So it was just an ugly goal. right? Like, and that's what the Flames wanted. When you're on a 3-game losing streak, you want to score early in the first period. And that's what they did here 4 or 5 minutes in. But yeah, it was again, we use the words passive, loose, like they were just loose. The Jets were loose defensively this year. And that's been their identity all year long. Since the season started, they've been a tight defensive group. And obviously they weren't today. And, it hurt them. They were just too passive with how they were checking with their sticks, turnovers. So it was just on this play, I'm not prepared to just lay all the blame on Neil Pionk.
No, I mean, again, he gets the lion's share because it's him that looks bad, because the highlights will show him getting burnt. But like I said, it takes a team, right? This line to me, like I said, all 5 guys played a role, with the exception of maybe Brendan Dillon, because he's coming onto the ice. So as you said, he's a little slow and a little.
David Martino's a genius.
Maybe it's time to switch Ehlers and Connor. Well, that's a good one, David. But
we've been saying that. We were saying that Saturday morning. I mean, I think everybody is ready to see Ehlers, Scheifele, and Velarde. It was one of the most dominant lines, and we'll see if maybe Bones goes to that tomorrow. I wouldn't hold my breath, but I think it's always an option. But it's kind of. I mean, look, I think a lot of criticism that Rick Bowness is getting for his line combinations is warranted, just because Ehlers, Scheifele, and Velarde was so good together. But we know that Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor love playing together. But just that top 6, it's just not working right now. It just isn't.
I mean, again, it's all well and good to say we love playing with each other, and that's fine. But I mean, you gotta have success, and 3 straight is good. But today's game is definitely concerning. Because
and by the way, Dave, I just want to clarify something.
Sure.
Sean Monahan had a hat trick in the first period, and I'm aware of that. But the top 6 for the rest of the I'm not going to say that
those are power play goals, though.
Well, exactly. I'm not going to say the second line was great tonight. Just
Yeah.
because Monahan had a hat trick in the first period. Last time I checked, hockey wasn't a 1-period game.
That's how I opened the show. I said if you just stopped watching after 20 minutes and you were probably pretty happy with the way things were going for your Winnipeg Jets, if you watched the full 60, which is the way hockey is played, you unfortunately did not. But for right now, because we're still in that first period with Rasmus Andersson in the box for, I believe, hooking Nikolai Ehlers.
Yeah.
Sean Monahan.
It's a lazy penalty. And good on Ehlers for drawing that penalty. If we're going to throw criticism around, Rasmus Andersson was awful in that first period.
Yeah, he was not good. No, he was not good. And look, this is again, this is what we want to see from the power play. Quick movement.
Yeah.
Not a lot of not taking a lot of time, and pretty much every single player, I think, on the ice touched that puck. And so, Sean Monahan in Calgary playing his old team, the team that drafted him, he gets the goal that ties the game. And again, it's just quick movement. Everybody's touching it. Everybody gets it, over. We got Velarde creating a screen in front of Markstrom, puts it back. Kyle Connor, quick shot on net. And Monahan just really at that. You're not going to be singing praises for this one, as it's just right place, right time. You give him credit for being in the right space, but it's really just a tap in for Monahan.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, right? Like we've been talking about getting those 3-on-2 triangle situations down low, not always just trying to get it back to the point for Morrissey's shot and then a tip in front, or trying to feed Connor on the one-timer. That's what they're doing here. Gabe Velarde, to me, Dave, is maybe the Jets' biggest weapon right now on the power play, right? Because he's a guy that, yes, you were joking about Kyle Connor on the national broadcast. Everybody just thinks all Kyle Connor can do is shoot it. And obviously his shot here directly results in the goal because Markstrom's out of the play and Monahan goes to the net and he pokes it in. But Velarde down low, you have to respect him for his playmaking ability, but he's also a good distributor as well.
Yeah.
So I love how they're making those kind of tic-tac-toe plays down low. And instead of, trying to feed Connor at the face-off circle, they're trying to feed the guy in the middle of the slot. And that's where we know the majority of goals are scored in the NHL. So, yeah, I love how quick the decision-making was. And that execution is there right now for the power play. Finally, these last 2 games, it's like a breath of fresh air, Dave. Like we've been talking about this struggling power play for months now, if not years.
Yeah.
And the last 2 games, the Jets have finally figured it out, which is nice to see.
Well, I'm not going to report that the Jets were watching us interview JPVJ, and they're like, hey, JP just outlined what we need to do. But it sure sounds like what they're doing, Ezzy, is what JP talked about on Saturday. And Look, that's a lot of success. They scored 4 power play goals in the last 2 games. They haven't scored 4 power play goals in like the last previous to that. What was it? 20 games, 30 games, 40 games. And I'm talking about in total. Forget about like, more than 1 power play goal in a game. So the Jets, of course, they've now tied the game, Sean Monahan. But hey, Sean Monahan says, you know what? I'm not quite done. And 42 seconds later, he decides, but this time as he doesn't want to get a power play goal. He feels like those are cheap. So Sean Monahan decides he's going to throw a backhand on the net and score at a 5-on-5 one. But again, good movement by the Jets. You got DeMello, you got Morrissey, you got Ehlers and Ehlers and Perfetti, and he gets give Sean Monahan a lot of credit because he's going to those areas where the puck is, and he said it. I think him and Velarde said it. Sorry, I think it was Velarde, just talking about guys who are willing to get to the front, the hard areas to be in, and score those goals. And it was a nice play by Monahan to get that up and over and in. And suddenly the Jets have a 2-1 lead, and Jets Nation is ecstatic because the Jets are up 2-1 quickly now into the first period.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about it so many times when the Jets go bang, bang. I mean, then the Jets are playing really well. And they did play really well in the first period for the majority of the first period.
Yeah.
And, there were guys going to the net. Not only was Monahan going to the net, Perfetti was going to the net. And, I singled out Rasmus Andersson, who took the penalty, obviously, that resulted in the Jets' first power play goal. But, Andersson just takes a wild kind of, swing at the puck, and Monahan's right there. And we know that Monahan's got great hands.
Yeah.
And, the Flames were just, to me, disorganized in their own zone, scrambly in their own zone. But yeah, I mean, that was just kind of the Jets bull rushing the front of the net, Dave, and Andersson just, taking a wild swing at it. Like, to me, he should have just moved someone out of the play. Like it was a rugby scrum in front of Jacob Markstrom, right? Like it was just a lot of traffic. But yeah, I mean, the Jets obviously had all of the momentum at that point, and, they continued it on, and, we'll get into the next goal here, because Monahan scored the very rare Jets natural hat trick.
Well, and before we go too far ahead, although we do have a lot of goals to get into, Ezzy, so I'm not going to dwell too long on this, but I think the importance of this goal vis-a-vis the comments from Rick Bowness. I mean, Rick Bowness made the comments about the second line and how they need to earn their ice time and score some goals. And it's good work. And, I don't really understand, to be honest with you. I'm looking at the way NHL.com has it listed. They have it Monahan from DeMello and Morrissey, but I don't understand because Cole Perfetti definitely touched that puck and got a stick.
I was going to say, I'm surprised that Perfetti didn't get an assist there.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how they wouldn't give Perfetti the primary assist on that play, but I mean, again, those are small details. I'm not sure anybody other than maybe Cole Perfetti and his agent are too concerned about that assist. But I mean, look,
and he is due for a contract, right? He's going to be a pending RFA. So
that's right. But look, you give him credit for being in front, and that's an area you're going to have to get prepared to get hit. And he makes a nice play. He's got good hand-eye, and he makes that helps that puck get to Monahan, and then, like you said, ends up in the back of the net. And speaking of Sean Monahan, well, he wasn't done there because the Jets. Now that he had a 5-on-5 goal, Ezzy, he's like, well, you know what? Maybe I'll go and get a power play goal. Another power play goal, because the Jets weren't done there. And Oliver Shillington in the penalty box. And why was he in the penalty box? I can't remember. It was because he tripped speaking of Cole Perfetti, Ezzy. So there you go. Again, crediting guys for drawing power plays.
It was a trip.
Yeah, he tripped Perfetti, which gave the Jets another power play. And they decided we're going to go 2 for 2. And again, Sean Monahan, and maybe the chat actually can help us out, because Ezzy and I were talking about this before the show began. How many natural hat tricks have the Jets ever, if any, have the Jets ever scored? I've got a list.
I thought Laine had a natural hat trick in this 5-goal game. Guy. I might be wrong about that, though. I'm pretty sure Laine had 3 goals in the first period during that 5-goal game. But again, what was that, 6 years ago? That's a long time ago, Dave. That's a long time, and a lot of icy beers ago.
Well, that's a lot of icy beers ago. I agree with you. Absolutely. But look, it's definitely a question as to, why are these, like, again, like I said, I just wasn't sure. So I run a little fun little list.
Brian Little have a natural hat trick at one point?
Matty Perreault could have had one.
Matty Perreault was the first Jet to score 4 goals, I think, in a game.
He was.
Like first Jets 2.0. But I don't think that was a natural hat trick. And remember, Blake Wheeler had the hat trick against Pittsburgh in the first period.
Yeah, but
I thought that was a natural hat trick, but I don't think it was.
No, it wasn't. That one was definitely, I think it was a 4-goal. But like, if you look at the Jets actually are on pace to have a decent number of hat tricks this year. They have 3 already this year. Last year they had 5, 2, 1, 3. 2018-19 they had 8. Ezzy, 8 hat tricks, not natural hat tricks. And then in 17-18, the best year, they had 5. So a lot of hat tricks in this. And then it's funny because remember how many years it took for the Jets to get to a hat trick, because like you said, was it Brian Little against Colorado in like December? I think in December of like 2014. Is
that coming from the chat, or is that coming from your memory?
No, that's my memory. I'm trying to remember if
possible.
that's what it was. But anyways, look, let's get into the goal. Sean Monahan, natural hat trick. Apparently, according to our friend Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press, there were some hats tossed on because, of course, like I said, he spent 6 seasons, Ezzy, I believe, in Calgary. So there's some fat. He's still got some 6
or
fans.
7 years.
Yeah, so he's still got some fans in Cowtown, but Sean Monahan, and everything's coming up Jets, right? Like you said, Gabriel Velarde, who's so difficult in tight and in front of the net, he won't even get an assist. Then, he gets an assist because he touches it and he puts it right to where Monahan is. And Monahan, again, similar to his first goal, kind of an easy one. Like he shoots it in, but the net's Markstrom's looking after Velarde, so he's got a fairly wide open net to shoot at.
Yeah, and we've talked about that the power play is really going here, but I just thought Calgary was, again, like just a little bit too loose, a little bit disorganized on their penalty kill. And yeah, I mean, like, you saw specifically Mark Scheifele, how happy he was for Monahan to score his natural hat trick. And I mean, that's special for a guy that's only his 5th game as a Jet, or 6th game as a Jet. But again, to me, this is just quick puck movement. And again, Kyle Connor with the shot, the quick shot, the quick release. We've seen that so many times over the years, Dave. And Jacob Markstrom is going from right to left. That's right. Fake news, Dave.
Well, I was wrong. Spency's saying that because I was wrong. It was actually 9 seasons for Monahan in Calgary, not 6.
Okay. Yeah, I think they said on the broadcast that he played 600 or 700 games. Like Monahan's
I don't hear the broadcast. I was at the Moose game, so I didn't get a chance.
No, that's why I'm letting you know, Dave.
I know. I appreciate it.
He was a very durable player. He didn't miss a lot of hockey for the Flames, but you think back to that year that he had 82 points. I mean, that was a long time ago now. We're going back 5 or 6 years, maybe
18-19 was when he had 82 points.
There you go. So that's 6 years ago, right? Or whatever.
Fact check that, Spency.
Exactly. Spency is Illegal Curve's Daniel Dale. If you ever watch CNN, he's the guy that's always fact checking the politicians, right? So
he's Canadian.
Is he Canadian?
Yeah, he's from, he used to work for, I don't know, one of the publications here in Canada.
All right, right on.
There you go.
So he's one of 40 million of us.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, on this goal, I just thought, again, Flames penalty kill looked a little bit loose. And again, to me, it's the quick release, the quick shot of Kyle Connor with Markstrom going right to left. And Sean Monahan, again, where is he? In the slot. And Mike Kelly, who we've had on the show before, the Saturday morning show, he mentioned this. Sean Monahan scores his goals from the inner slot. He's top 30 in the league, scoring his goals from the inner slot. So again, that's what the Jets needed, right? They needed a guy to win faceoffs. They needed a guy to help them on the power play. And that's what he's done. And again, I'm not saying that Sean Monahan is necessarily going to be that missing piece that helps the Jets win the Stanley Cup this year. All I'm saying is Monahan has been as advertised.
Right.
Like he did his job tonight. You're not going to criticize Monahan. He scored a hat trick. It was the rest of the Jets that didn't really help him out tonight. Or today.
Well, and look, it's one of those situations where if it just ends there, 3-1, Jets are done, game over, right? But they started to play a little bit like that, and they were up. They had a disparity in shots. I think it was like 12-6 at the point when Blake Coleman, he's a good player. Every time the Jets play the Flames, I always think of Blake Coleman. First of all,
there's a reason he has 2 Stanley Cup rings, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Or does he have 1? Was he there for both? He was there
I don't know.
At least one.
I don't want to. I'm not going to speculate because I don't want Spency fact checking me wrong. So I'm not going to even.
Do you remember what the line was for Tampa Bay that one year? It was Yanni Gord.
Yep.
It was Andre Palat, I believe, and it was Blake Coleman.
Well, man, what is this? Lightning
or was it
lunch?
Alex Killorn? Maybe Alex Killorn. I know that Blake Coleman and Yanni Gord were on that third line.
Yeah, well,
And that's one of the reasons when you have those types of guys on the third line, like it just shows you, right? Because what line is he on now in Calgary? He's on the top line. So
there you go. And he's got 22 goals because he takes advantage of, I would suggest, a number of miscues here. The Jets, Neil Pionk, who, like I said, has been received a little bit of anger, but Coleman just doesn't dump it, right? And Pionk waves his stick at it ineffectively. You could see the backline caught Brendan Dillon with a stick to the face, but the Flames are quick. The Jets are standing around, and Coleman, does exactly what you need to do, which is go to the front of the net and get a shot on there. And, again, the Jets to me has just looked like they were just slow standing around.
Sure.
And, Mark Scheifele's like a hair late to get to Coleman. And by that point, it's already too late and it's in the back of the net.
By the way, Rob Mahoney's not liking that I said you can't criticize Monahan. All I'm saying, Rob, is like, you know what I'm saying. I mean, he scored a hat trick. He wasn't necessarily terrific for the rest of the game.
Right.
But he's making a joke here that the comment is, for those listening on the pod, if he scored 4 more, Jets would have won. Right. But yeah, I mean, look, the Jets, we'll get into the second period here because, like, as Dave mentioned, we have 8 goals to talk about tonight. So
yeah,
we're only at the 3-2 goal. But yeah, you're right. Both teams, like, look, this was not a defensive clinic between the Jets and the Flames this afternoon. When 5 goals are scored in the first period, I guess, all you had to do, Dave, was tune into the Wild Canucks game if you really want to see a lot of goals.
Yeah.
If you just tuned in now, there were 17 goals in that game, including 6 from the Wild in the third period. But yeah, I mean, look, Blake Coleman's a talented player. And when the Flames go down 2 goals at home in the first period, there's going to be a pushback. But again, it was just, look, it starts with Neil Pionk, whiffing on the dump in, and then Mark Scheifele just doesn't pick up Blake Coleman because Neil Pionk is out of position, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around here. Pionk and Dillon, that wasn't their best defensive effort. But Michael Backlund goes into the corner, and Brendan Dillon goes to cover him, and then Mangiapane feeds Blake Coleman. Yep. And then because Brendan Dillon's out of the play, Mark Scheifele's got to pick up Coleman.
That's right.
Again, so, like, I mean, this was just not a good defensive effort by the Jets as a team this afternoon. You look at a lot of these goals, and yes, the Flames worked hard for these goals, and the Flames have some guys that can put the puck in the net. Mm-hmm. But the Jets, I think a lot of this was self-inflicted this afternoon.
And so it was 3-2 after 20 minutes. And that's it. That's the end of the Illegal Curve postgame show. The Jets obviously won because that's the final score. No, of course, it wasn't the final score, Ezzy. The second period, probably, would you say that was one of the worst second periods you've seen from the Jets this season?
At 5-on-5, it was, I would say. And I think it was mainly because the Jets just didn't have a spark. Like, there's one chance that I can think of, Dave, that the Jets had. Dylan Samberg had a really nice rush.
With Perfetti.
Because I know you were at the Moose game at Canada Life, but you were watching that. Perfetti took the puck in the middle of the ice, and he kind of hesitated. I forget who the Flames defenseman was. Markstrom had to make a really good, I remember it was a shoulder save.
And the puck still kind of squeezed.
Right.
Close,
and then it was Nazem Kadri who was there, Johnny, on the spot, and he got rid of the puck. So Dylan Samberg and Perfetti combined for a good scoring chance. And again, I realize a lot of people watching the postgame show today are critical of guys like Pionk and Perfetti. I mean, Perfetti still got 30 points. I mean, look, he hasn't scored a goal in a long time. Like, what are we talking about? I think 13 games now, something like that.
Something like that.
I just think we need to, pump the brakes. Is there an argument to be made, Dave, that Perfetti should be dropped out of the top 6? Absolutely there is.
Sure.
But I don't necessarily think that, he's the biggest problem on the Jets right now. I think there's a lot of issues on this Jets team. There's a lot of guys that are struggling at both ends of the ice. I mean, Alex Iafallo, I don't think has scored a goal since November. Obviously, I'm joking right now, but it's been probably 20 games now, 25 games.
Something like that.
I mean, yes, going back to what you said before, Dave, I wouldn't be shocked if Rasmus Kupari comes into the lineup tomorrow.
No,
why not spark the team? Give the team a spark a little bit. Well, I mean, like Rasmus Kupari wasn't exactly lighting the lamp, before he was injured, right?
You mean his 0 goals?
But I mean, look, put him in. I have no, what do you have to lose there?
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right. Now, the Jets PK as he got the opportunity to go and pick up a clean sheet. Unfortunately, they were unable to because Nazem Kadri with Sean Monahan in the box burns Winnipeg for his, I think was that his first Ezzy of the game. And so it's suddenly a 3-3 game because the Flames, again, like I said, the Jets just didn't, they looked off. And you know what, Ezzy, you made this point and I wanted to just bring it up before we get into the goal specifically, but this is a Flames team that knew their season was on the line, right? And again, like I'm not trying to be overly aggressive in my assessment there.
No, they needed this game. They absolutely, having lost 3 games in a row.
Yeah.
And who did they lose to? Was it Carolina when Markstrom was pulled?
Yeah, I think
they
so.
lost their last
Detroit,
game 5-0.
Detroit.
Sorry, Detroit.
Oh, it was Detroit. It was Detroit.
Yeah, I knew it was an Eastern Conference team.
Yeah,
but Markstrom was pulled from that game, so that was an embarrassing loss for them. So you're right; their playoff lives were on the line today.
Well, and again, they're down 3-1 at home, and these last few games they've been losing at home, and so that they were. I suspect they got a rather significant conversation in the first intermission. But again, you give the Flames credit. Nobody is boxing out in front for the Jets. Like it is a clean look for Nazem Kadri to deflect that. Dylan DeMello is off of Kadri, and again, so is Dylan Sandberg. And there's 2 Flames that are right in front of Connor Hellebuck. So what do we always talk about when it comes to the Jets power plays? You want to see guys in front. Flames have guys in front. Jets defense are nowhere near them, and it ends up a 3-3 game.
Yeah, Andrei Kuzmenko, Dave, was the other forward that was in the slot there for the Flames.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, DeMello and Sandberg all year long have been the Jets, and I'm confident in saying this. Those 2 guys have been your best defensive defensemen all year long.
Yep.
So again, we're not picking on them, as players here. But yeah, I mean, there was too much time and space there for Nazem Kadri just to basically park himself in front of the slot. And obviously, Kadri has hundreds of goals throughout his NHL career.
Yeah.
So he's been doing this for a long time, and he's got a Stanley Cup ring on his resume as well. But that was a huge goal because what was that, 4 minutes or 5 minutes into the second period, and now it's a tie game. The Jets had all of the momentum after Monahan scored his 3rd goal of the period, and now the Flames had all of their momentum, and they obviously kept it going throughout the game. But it was a lazy penalty by Monahan, and again, there's a lot of blame to go around here.
Hey, you criticized Monahan, so you did what Rob said you wouldn't do, but you did. You criticized.
Well, I did it for Rob Mahoney, but
there we go.
Look, the Flames. We talked about it. The Flames' power play has actually been worse than the Jets' power play. The Jets' power play over the last 2 games has been the best power play in the league. Obviously, I'm joking right now.
I think they were what were they 1 for 30 or something like that is coming into that opportunity. Yeah. They scored the Kadri goal.
But again, when you play with an edge, and the Flames did play with an edge today, and when you play with desperation, that's what happens. Yeah. I mean, a 2-goal lead is not safe. We always joke about the 2-goal lead being the most dangerous lead in hockey. Well, it was this afternoon for the Jets, and the Flames made them pay. And now all of a sudden the game's tied, and you're already starting to think about, I'm not saying the Jets were necessarily doing this, but, you start already thinking about tomorrow's game at home against the Wild. And the Jets didn't put a good effort in the second period or the third period for that matter. We talked about there were, a few chances here and there. Perfetti had the good chance in the second period. The Markstrom had to make a good save. But, it kind of fell apart. This was not Jets hockey. That's what kind of stood out to me. Whenever the Flames pushed back on the Jets never got back to the style that they wanted to play. There was just a lot of, dump ins where there was no pressure. A lot of the shots were kind of from the outside with not a lot of driving to the net. The only driving to the net we saw was Sean Monahan on the power play really in the first period, right? So the Flames had all the momentum after that tying goal, and I wasn't surprised when they went up 4-3 at all.
Well, and as it's interesting, we'll get into that goal by Johnny Huberdeau, but it to me, it was a function of like we've talked about, this Jets team almost, even though it was 3-2 after 20 minutes, it almost felt like they thought they were going to cruise to this one. They felt like they had ownership, and they looked like they would have after the first, and you credit like Markstrom. It's funny that they left him in because, he'd given up 2 goals on his first 5 shots. And then he had, I don't know when the Jets scored on when their goal count was vis-a-vis the shot attempts. But the fact is that, it could have looked the other way. It could have obviously two of them are power play goals, so you give him a little consideration there. But you weren't certain, and he, like you said, he held, but he wasn't overly tested. There were no chances that were, Kyle Connor hits the outside of the post. Obviously doesn't count as a shot, but there were a couple of chances. But again,
the Jets had one. I realize we're still in the second period because we're going to break down the Johnny Huberdeau goal that made it 4-3 for the Flames.
Sure.
The Jets had one high danger chance in the third period.
When
right? They had 24 against the San Jose Sharks in that game, right? So the offensive attack it just wasn't there for the Jets. So yes, the Jets gave up, 4 consecutive, or I think 5 consecutive Flames goals.
Yeah.
But there just wasn't a pushback. There just wasn't a response after the Flames, when it tied the game on the power play there.
Mm-hmm.
The chances were just few and far between.
Well, and okay, so let's get into the go-ahead goal for the Flames, because the Jets have possession of the puck, right? You've got the Jets take a shot into the net. The second line's on. Nikolai Ehlers, I mean, first of all, you got to wonder what he was doing there. I mean, he just takes a shallow, attempt to try and prevent a pass from getting out of the Flame zone. And he does this very weird sort of wide turn. And you're like, well, there's no digging in there. There's no fortitude. There's no want to get the puck. Obviously he made an attempt, but it really didn't look like a very good one. And then the Flames are attacking with numbers, Ezzy. And, Sean Monahan, one thing about this line, they're not fast. They don't have any speed. Monahan, credit him for at least getting back. Cole Perfetti is in no man's land. The defense is not looking good. And it ends up in the back of your net. Now you're down 4-3 with 4 minutes to go in the second period. But, like I said, Neil Pionk makes another questionable defensive decision.
I don't know what was happening there.
Yeah.
I really don't. I mean, I don't know if it was kind of just a situation where, Pionk was kind of flat-footed and he was turning one way when he wanted to go the other, but it was just a situation where it was Sharon Govich.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you mentioned that, Dave, but it was Sharon Govich that had the puck.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Pionk is just kind of makes a weird play where he's there because he's on the right side and Sharon Govich is right in front of the blue line, and Sharon Govich just goes around him. And then it's Sean Monahan up the middle who's now responsible for the Flames forward. And it gets caught up in his skates, and then Rasmus Andersson just passes it to Johnny Huberdeau, and it's an open net for Johnny Huberdeau.
Yeah.
So again, that's we talked about it. Hellebuyck allows 5 goals in this game. I honestly don't know if you could blame him on any one of these 5 goals.
Well, you're disappointed by the lack of effort.
It was the play in front of him that was the problem. It wasn't Hellebuck's goaltending.
I mean, I think we've done a pretty good job detailing how almost every single person involved on that. Think about it. Sean Monahan, Ezzy, you said he's the guy who's responsible. He's in the place where he needs to be. He has the puck on his stick and he just doesn't get a hold of it, right? And then the Flames turned that into a, not really a 2-on-1, but basically it's 2 to 1.
And I'm just looking at the replay here, Dave, on one of my tabs.
Yeah.
And
not a second screen like Drew?
No, I don't. I only work off of one screen. Sharon Govich is so, like we said, Pionk's the right side defenseman. Sharon Govich is coming down the left wing, and the only thing that I can kind of in Pionk's credit is that Sharon Govich kind of fakes that he's going to go along the wall.
Sure,
but again, that's for Pionk to be in a position where he's got to read that, right. So it's almost like he kind of turns, but then he gets again, I don't. The word I used was flat-footed, but Sharon Govich just blows by him.
Yeah.
And essentially it turns into a 2-on-1. And like I said, it's Brendan Dillon who's the only defenseman back, and then Sean Monahan's the center, so he's responsible, but then it gets caught up in Monahan's skate. So Andersson now has jumped up into the play and he just passes it over to Huberdeau, who's to the left of Hellebuyck, and it's an empty net goal for him essentially, right? So it was just yes, Pionk makes a bad play there, but Monahan is back so that he has the ability to break up that play. So, again, I mean, who do you want to blame, Pionk and Monahan? Do you want to give more blame to Pionk? It was just
blame to everybody.
It was poor defense from the Jets. That's what it was.
Like I said, I don't think you hold anybody back from blame in this one. As like Ehlers, I didn't like the way he played it. Perfetti was lazy getting back. He's slow. If you're tired, get off the ice. But don't coast back into the zone in a 3-all game. It's 3-all. I mean, again, like I said, is this game critical? Is this game, game 53, I think, on the season, whatever it is? Spence will fact check me in about 2 seconds. But whatever it is, I mean, at the same time, you have an anticipation. You got to play a little bit harder. Calgary's coming out hard. You guys aren't. And so you haven't
and the Jets were trying to clearly get out of that second period with the game tied, right?
That's right.
So there was 4 minutes left in the second period. The Flames are all over you. And that 4-3 goal is just absolutely killer.
The old backbreaker.
Exactly. And, the Jets obviously had, a lot of time to come back.
Who was that in wrestling?
Pardon me?
Who used to do the backbreaker? I used to do that to my brother. Drop him on the old knee. Who did the old backbreaker? Do you remember?
Brett the Hitman Hart would do the backbreaker quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm trying to think of what
Mr. Perfect.
I feel like
Mr. Perfect had the perfect plex. That was his finishing move.
The honky tonk man always used to smash a guitar over it. So that was his kind of move. But was he a backbreaker?
Do you remember the name of the oh yeah, Mr. Wonderful. Do you remember the name of the tag team? Greg the Hammer Valentine and the honky tonk man. Remember what that tag team was called?
I don't. What was it?
Rhythm and Blues.
There you go. Oh, Doug is saying Vern Gagne. I don't remember Vern. Give me the wrestling name. I don't know anybody's first names. Killer Bees, Coco Beware.
Yeah, well, that's what Dave and I call ourselves as members of the
worker bees.
Yeah, we're the worker bees, but also the Killer Bees.
Yeah.
That's the Wu-Tang clan too. They call themselves the Killer Bees. I do not remember Vern Gagne.
No, neither do I. That might be a little bit before our time, but maybe.
Well, hold on. Let's push back on Drywall Man. He's saying that I'm the only person that I didn't say Hellebuck played great. I just don't know how many of these goals that you could single out and say that Hellebuck's goaltend. Look, we've gone over the goals, right? Like the Kadri tip on the power play, that's not Hellebuck's fault. This goal was clearly not Hellebuck's fault.
No, I mean, again, don't get me wrong. We're not here to tell you that.
I'm not picking on Drywall Man, by the way. Drywall Man is a regular IC viewer here.
No, I mean,
I'm just saying. I think we're allowed I don't think I said Hellebuck played well.
We're allowed to have difference of opinions from the folks.
It was the team defense. It was just too loose. There were too many turnovers. And again, even on this goal, Neil Pionk gets turned around by Sharon Govich.
Yeah.
And then Monahan is there. He tries to intercept the pass to Johnny Huberdeau. It goes off his skate. Rasmus Andersson passes it over to Huberdeau. I'm just saying, and like you said, Dave, if you're at the end of a long shift, then get off the ice or just find a way to make the play. The Jets they were bad defensively tonight. And I'm not sure how many times I can say it.
And I mean, look, we're not here to tell you that Connor Hellebuck had a phenomenal game and everybody else just stunk. But I mean, I think the team, there were too many defensive breakdowns, and we're going through it for a reason, because we're looking at these goals and you're thinking to yourself, what's going on? Now, look, the Jets now are down 4-3 after 40 minutes. And you're thinking, well, the Flames were able to flip the script down a goal after 20 minutes. Are the Jets going to similarly be able to respond as? That was the big question. Would the Jets have that sort of response in them coming out of the second intermission? Of course, I had a response because I was trying to get home for the third period. So I was, unfortunately, after the Moose, because at this point, the Moose had just concluded their game against the Milwaukee Admirals, 17 straight wins for the Nashville Farm team, who defeated Manitoba 4-3. It was a good game. It was a tight game. We'll maybe get into it a little bit at the end of this one, but so I skipped post-game media, which I suspect wouldn't have been very fun because it hasn't been very fun. They only have 5 wins at home this season, but you wondered what kind of pushback would the Jets have. And we talked about it in our preamble. They didn't really have one. It was really a very casual. There wasn't that intensity. And again, nobody.
There was one chance I can remember, Dave, that was kind of midway through the third period before Mangiapane made it 5-3. Obviously, that was the killer goal. The Jets weren't coming back from a 2-goal deficit in the third period the way they were playing.
Right.
Scheifele made a nice pass to Connor, kind of in tight, and Markstrom had to make a good save. That was the one chance that I can remember, which was, I think, the only high danger chance they had. Right? Didn't I say that before?
Yeah.
The Jets had one high danger chance in that third period, because obviously, they had the one power play.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was on the power play. No, I think that was at even strength. Anyways,
it was at even strength.
The Jets, I think, only had one shot on that power play, if I'm not mistaken. That when Tanev took that penalty, I don't remember what it was. Tripping. Just checked here on DeMello.
Yeah.
So the Jets power play did not look very dangerous.
No, it didn't.
And give the Flames credit. I mean, again, desperate teams play a desperate style of hockey. The Flames at that point in the game were hanging on to a 1-goal lead. But yeah, I don't think, the Jets made it that tough. That was a pretty lackluster third period, I would say, for the Jets.
Well, and that's what we're talking about. You have an opportunity. It's a 4-3 game. It's about 8 minutes to go when Chris Tanev takes the tripping penalty, which he vehemently did not enjoy and wasn't a fan of. But again, like let's just talk. Let's call a spade a spade. This is just bad defense by the Jets. So your power play wasn't particularly good. Your second power play unit is on. Cole Perfetti has the puck behind the Flames net. So you're like, okay, well, they didn't, Tanev rushes to get on. So the power play comes to an end. Okay. So if you're Cole Perfetti, you got to be smart. Keep that puck behind the net, allow your guys to get, have some control, and then you can do a line change. Instead, Ehlers plays this just as poorly as you can play this. I just don't understand what he's doing. He's like he puts himself in no man's land, and he shouldn't have been. And again, like I said, it's a 4-3 hockey game, right? This is even though the Jets haven't been playing well, it's you're one shot away. But instead, Ehlers don't get me wrong. I understand he's tired, but he plays this awfully. And then Cole Perfetti also played it terribly. He was slow through the neutral zone, barely gets back, doesn't take anyone, and he's caught it in no man's land. So, it ends up, and Andrew Mangiapane, who's, manja, that's a nice play by him, but he manjas, to use a little Francais, because it was just a beautiful pass by Kadri, who's keeping his head up all along, and they know where each other are. And so he finds the back of the net, but just disappointing effort defensively from this Jets team. And look, they may have been tired. I understand that. It's the end of the power play. You're trying to tie the game, but they collectively did not play that well.
No, and we kind of talked about, Mangiapane was solid all game long. We talked about that line of Michael Backlund, Mangiapane, and Blake Coleman. That's the Flames' top line, because Kadri centers that second line with Kuzmenko and I think it's Popisil, not Popsicle, yeah. Dave. Popisil.
I wonder if it's related to the tennis player.
I do not know that.
I don't think they are.
No, I don't think they are. But you're absolutely right. And again, there's just over 6.5 minutes left when the goal is scored. And, that goal's a killer. And you're right, Dave. Nikolai Ehlers, he's not the most physical player. So you're not expecting him to go all Scott Stevens here. Yeah. But Nikolai Ehlers has got to do something there, because, he's slow coming back in the neutral zone. And then Kadri cuts to the middle, and Kadri just kind of steps around him. And I didn't love the defense by Josh Morrissey either there. No, Josh Morrissey doesn't, he's not tight on Andrew Mangiapane. So again, here, I think there's a theme in this game.
Yes.
It just was a loose defensive effort by the Jets, and Ehlers here and Morrissey here. They were just too loose in their own zone in front of Hellebuck. And again, I'm not going to blame Hellebuck for this goal. Andrew Mangiapane, what did he have? 40 goals a few years ago. Mangiapane's a sniper. Yeah, maybe not 40. I think it was 35, if I'm not mistaken. But again, I agree with you. I do not like, how loose Ehlers was in the defensive zone. I don't remember what his shift length was at that point. Yeah. But when you talk about Ehlers' lack of 5-on-5 ice time, it's not going to improve with plays like that.
No.
And
the only good news for Nikolai Ehlers
I want to say one thing before people that are watching right now get all over me. I think Ehlers deserves more ice time at 5-on-5. But all I'm saying is he's not going to earn more ice time with plays like that in the defensive zone. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think the issue is that. I think the issue is that it seems to folks that the leash is longer for some players, Kyle Connor, cough, cough, than it is for guys like Nikolai Ehlers. I think that's the point that folks would make. That Kyle Connor does.
I'm not sure why, because both of those guys have been in the NHL for the same amount of time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure why Kyle Connor gets favored. I feel like this is like we're in elementary school here, but I'm not sure. You know what I mean, Dave? Like, these guys are similar age.
Yeah.
Right. Like Ehlers is 1 year older, I think. Well, but these guys are like, why does Kyle? Both of these guys are not the best defensive players. But if we're talking about who's better, Ehlers is a better defensive player than Connor.
There's no question about it.
So I'm not sure why Kyle Connor gets the longest.
Ezzy, I shouldn't say there's no question about it after today's effort, because recency bias would suggest right now that it was
a rough defensive effort for most players tonight.
Yeah, and again, that's what I was going to say. It wasn't just that line. That line.
Yeah. So, but on that particular goal, again, there's what did we say? There was about 6.5 minutes left in the game there.
Yeah.
When Mangiapane scored, that's a flyby, right? Like that's just Ehlers kind of not doing anything. Ehlers is just kind of there. He's just So I mean, again, but I think the Jets just gave the Flames the neutral zone. They absolutely controlled the middle of the ice. It was too easy for the Flames to enter the Jet zone, and it just wasn't tight defensive coverage. It was just poor defensive coverage. It's not going to cut it. They're going to have to be much better against the Wild, who apparently score 10 goals a game now.
But and again, you hit it on the head. These guys had one high danger chance in the third period of a game they were trailing.
Yeah.
Like there's no excuse for that.
That's the biggest concern for me, was that effort in the third period. Your second period was bad.
Yeah.
But
it's reboundable.
And I think they had 10 shots. I'm not sure how the Jets were credited with 10 shots in that third period. But
you could rebound from a bad second period, because first of all, I was listening to the intermission with Kelly Moore, and he said, I think in third periods, the Jets haven't been good from coming back with a deficit, but their goals for versus goals against in the third period, no surprise, it was 62 goals for and 30 goals against. So there's a significant disparity in their favor in third periods, which again means they score a lot in the third. They don't give up a lot. But that to me was they didn't have that passion. They didn't have that jump. And look, I'm not here to make excuses. We don't know. Matt Hyman, who's a longtime chatter, is saying, I wish we knew which guys were game time decisions. Maybe we would answer questions about a couple of them. Bones had Stanley and Kupari dressed for warm-up. So clearly some guys are dealing with injuries, the illness, the one that Morgan Barron obviously kept him out of the third period. But ultimately the Jets finish the game. I'm not going to go into the empty netter, of course, because we don't break down empty net goals, but the Jets lose 6-3 and end that 2-game road trip 1-1. An unfortunate end, even though it had a great beginning with a big victory over the Vancouver Canucks, but it ends with a stinky loss to the Calgary Flames, a loss that's owned, I guess, if you want to put a bow on it, Ezzy, a loss that's owned by majority of the guys on that team. Right. That's probably the only good thing, is that everybody had a piece in that loss for the most part.
And one thing I'll say quickly here before we go to break, because we're well over an hour in, if the Jets come back with a great effort at home tomorrow night versus Minnesota, then I'm not that upset. But I mean, I think this was the highs were high and the lows were low on this 2-game road trip, right? You beat the best team in the league on Saturday night in the Vancouver Canucks, and then this effort. It's one thing to lose to a desperate team, but it's the way you lost, right? And a lot of, like I said, a lot of it was effort and self-inflicted wounds here, where the defensive coverage just wasn't good enough. So we'll see how they respond tomorrow, because we know that the Wild are going to be motivated.
That's right. Well, Ezzy, this has been the Betway game recap, which has been brought to you by Betway. It's simple, fun, and safe to bet with Betway. So head on over to Betway and bet your way. You must be 19 years or older to play. And Ezzy, always make sure to please play responsibly. Okay, we're going to head to commercial break here on the Illegal Curve post-game show. I'm Dave Minuk. He's Ezzy Ginsburg. We do this each and every time the Jets play. Make sure you smash that like button and are subscribing to this channel. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Boston Pizza harnessed Betalytics to test if the game is better at home or at Boston Pizza. The results are irrefutable. Catch the game at Boston Pizza, powered by Betalytics.
You guys ever wish for a game changer in life?
Like finding out your favorite snack has 0 calories?
Or discovering the mute button on Ezzy?
Picture this, a secret weapon for parking, where you can book a spot a whole month in advance.
Tell me more, Drew.
Pre-book your parking at really low rates, or maybe even for free if you use the code IllegalCurve.
Free? What is this, sorcery?
The Grid Park app. It's a real secret weapon that has affordable game day parking, and to sweeten the deal even more,
I love sweets.
Our listeners can use the code IllegalCurve to park for free.
Holy Zamboni!
Tell me about it. Just download Grid Park, GRYD Park, and use the code IllegalCurve, all one word, to park for free.
The game can change just like that. Accidents happen when you aren't protected. So now what? Getting to your injury quickly can make all the difference. Help prevent them from being game changers with Linden Market Dental Center. Bonding, crowns, bridges, and dental implants. State-of-the-art treatments are available to help you get back in the game. To learn more, visit lindenmarketdentalcenter.com. Creating smiles for life.
Your coworkers love you because you always make them laugh. You're the life of the party with stories that have them rolling on the floor. Or maybe you're just the quiet one in the corner with the one-liners that just slay. Do you have what it takes to become Winnipeg's funniest person with a day job? Try your luck. Hit the stage at Rumors Comedy Club, and you could be walking away with $1,000 cash. Winnipeg's funniest person with a day job. Presented by Rumors. For all the details, head to rumorscomedyclub.com.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
For 3 generations and over 80 years, Tough Duck has been making apparel that works and plays as hard as the people who wear it. From jackets to work boots and everything in between, Tough Duck's clothing can handle the harshest environments, even the Illegal Curve hockey show. Work to live, live to play. Visit toughduck.com.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve post-game show. I'm Dave Minuk. He is Ezzy Ginsburg, and we are closing things out here on a Monday afternoon, a holiday Monday afternoon.
Happy Louis Riel Day to everybody in Manitoba
there
and
you
elsewhere.
Go. Well, it's Family Day everywhere else, I think. Who knows? They'll change it to, I think it's Ezzy Ginsburg Day next year. So
we're keeping it Riel here, Dave, right?
We always keep it Riel on this show. Dallas Pauls is saying, hey, Dave, when is the next live viewing party at BP? Boston Pizza, our sponsor. That is in 10 days' time. We're leaping to the new year. So that is going to be, I believe, February 29th. The Jets take on the Dallas Stars. So that will be the next time we do a live show. We'll have some giveaways. So make sure you plan on being with us on Taylor. I believe on Taylor. I'm not sure. I'll wait for Mindell to give us
I think it is Taylor. I'm not going to be able to join you boys for that one, actually.
I know.
Because Naomi's going to be out of town, and I'm going to have to be parenting.
There you go.
So, yeah, I'm going to be making chicken nuggets, and I'm going to be putting the kids to bed. I'll watch the game, and I'll watch the post-game show, but I will have to be at my maison.
Okay.
Because, unfortunately, we don't have a third parent, so I'm going to have to stay home.
Well, Spency's not happy. That's why I was kind of hoping you wouldn't say anything, because we wanted to lure people there with the, under the false pretense that you would be in attendance. It would be
people come from you, Dave, more so than me or Drew. It's you. You're the unsung hero, the hero of mine of Illegal Curve. But I got to get to Festival with Spency. I've been texting with him, but it's tough to get away from these kids.
Well, maybe we'll get you a babysitter so you can still show up to that game on the 29th. That's always a possibility.
Yeah, hit me up in my DMs if you babysit.
That won't be my hardest hitting comment, but we want to give a Tough Duck hardest hitting comment out, and I believe you have one queued up, Mr. Ginsburg.
I sure do.
So that is coming up right now.
The Tough Duck hardest hitting comment.
Thank you to our friends at Tough Duck for their continued sponsorship of the Illegal Curve post-game show, and specifically the hardest hitting comment. Lots of good comments, so we appreciate everybody watching the show this afternoon/night. It is definitely the night now, but when we started the show, I think it might have been still, what was it, 5:45 when we started the show, Dave?
Yeah.
Lots of good comments. We're going to give it to Sebastian Unruh here. I like this comment. It's troubling that the Jets never got back to their game. Goal after goal after goal. We talked about it. 5 unanswered goals from the Calgary Flames tonight, and they never got back to their game. The effort was there, but not the proper style. I don't even know if the effort was there, especially on the 5th goal by Andrew Mangiapane. That was a pretty poor effort from Nick Ehlers, who obviously, you know, is arguably the most talented Jets forward and deserving of more ice time. So Sebastian, hopefully you're still watching. If you're not, maybe somebody that knows Sebastian, let him know that he won, or maybe Sebastian will see on the replay if he's not watching live. But Sebastian, send me an email, Ezra, EZRA, @illegalcurve.com, one word, or slide into my DMs on X and let me know your mailing address, and we will ship out a Tough Duck toque to you. On Saturday night, Trish Jordan, who is a loyal IC follower, she won, and we will be sending a toque out to her. And even though it will be warming up,
like 5 degrees this weekend,
I will be, as a lifelong Winnipegger, somebody who's lived here my entire life, I will almost guarantee, Dave, that it's going to get cold in between now and the spring. I don't think. Is that
a Ginsburg guarantee?
Well, I look, I mean, how many times do we think, you know, winter's over in mid-March or late March, and then we get a blizzard? So even though it's getting milder, you can never have enough toques. Look, we live in Manitoba. I mean, if you're a Manitoban, you got to have, you know, at least 5 to 7 toques on hand at all times. So Sebastian, send me an email, Ezra@illegalcurve.com, with your mailing info, and Tough Duck will ship out a toque to you.
Well, congratulations to Sebastian. I think what we're gonna have to start doing is we'll put the winners in the thing, so people know the next show. Maybe we'll have a little thing saying, Sebastian, you were the winner of the last putt. Just a thought that came to my mind.
Usually, if I see somebody in the chat that I know won and they haven't emailed me, what I'll do is I'll send a message on, you know, we have a function in StreamYard where we can send messages to people. So
we do. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Well, comments. I mean, not messages, not direct messages, not DMs, but you know what I mean. We can post comments from Illegal Curve Hockey.
Well, the only comment folks want to hear remaining from Illegal Curve Hockey is this one.
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Unfortunately for the folks, Ezzy, I was hoping that, you know, if the main course wasn't to your liking, whether you call this the appetizer because it actually took place before the meal, or the dessert, it also will not be to your liking, because Manitoba Moose, despite a valiant effort, and I thought a pretty strong game with the exception of probably the final 5 minutes, played a really good game against the Milwaukee Admirals. But unfortunately, that juggernaut farm club of Nashville wins their 17th straight game. Seems remarkable, as it's almost unheard of, but they've won 17 straight. Perry, our friend, the security guard, asked me what the record is in the AHL. I said I didn't know, Perry. I don't want Spency to fact check me, but I said I would look it up. Anyways, the first goal of the game went to Milwaukee. But Parker Ford, just 21 seconds later, Ezzy, he ties the game. That was his 9th of the year. He gets a loose puck from Kyle Capobianco, who's playing in his 200th AHL game. He leads the Moose in scoring, 4th amongst AHL defensemen. And then the Moose keep it going. It's kind of like little bang, bang, kind of. In Simon Lundmark, he scores his 2nd of the year. I believe it was his 1st at home, with a little all Swedish play. David Gustafsson, he picks up his first assist, first point with the Moose in over 2 years. Obviously, because it's his first games with the Moose in over 2 years. He gets it over to Axel Jonsson-Fjällby, who passes it over to Simon Lundmark, and it was like tic-tac-toe and into the back of the net. So Moose had a 2-1 lead, but unfortunately for Manitoba, about 30 seconds later, Mark Delgaizo ties it up. So it is a 2-2 game after 20 minutes. And then the Moose kept on coming. Christian Reichel, who's been really hot, even though started off very slow, he scores his 11th of the season, 4:15 into that second period. Nice little play from that line of him, Jeffrey Viel, and Parker Ford. The line Kyle Capobianco said kind of the heartbeat of this group. But unfortunately, they take a penalty. And taking a penalty against a team like Nashville, I keep calling them Nashville, Ezzy. They're Nashville light against the Milwaukee Admirals, results in a goal again. So now it is 3-3 after 40 minutes. And then Liam Foudy, I don't know if he's actually like a foodie, like Drew Mandel is the foodie, but Liam Foodie manages to score. I don't know. I think it was about 6:43 into the third period. Kind of super controversial, but he gets tied up, gets around the defense, puts it on Colin Delia, who was good in net today, and looked like he could have kicked it in. They went and they reviewed it, called it a good goal. So it's 4-3. The Moose had some chances, some good looks. Nikita Chibrikov, by the way, there was a major in this game. Speaking of, Milwaukee had gone 11-7 as. So you're thinking, okay, then they lost one of their guys because you need Nikita Chibrikov, who came back. He played no problem. He actually came back and played on the power play. So I was like, oh, no surprise there. And then they lost another. They ended up down to 9 forwards at one point because of injury. Twice, one because of penalties, the other because of injury. So they were down to 9, but they still held on. And the only complaint I would say of the Moose today was with the extra attacker, they looked listless and aimless and kind of like the Jets in that third period, didn't have a lot of pushback, and they failed to equalize the game. So Milwaukee ends up winning, and the Moose get 0 points out of the 4 that they could have taken home this weekend. So tough loss for the Moose, and they'll be back at it next weekend. I think they're playing Calgary next weekend. So Calgary at home, 2 more games. We'll give out some tickets. I know that folks enjoyed the tickets that we gave away for this weekend. So there you go. The Moose lose, the Jets lose, a lot of losing, but we won because all of you joined us on this show, the Illegal Curve post game show. So
one comment quickly on the Milwaukee Admirals, not Admirables.
Oh, that's what I said. They were. They're admirable.
Yeah.
How good they are.
And you mentioned, Dave, now 17 wins in a row, and we were trying to figure out what the AHL record is. They've got to be pretty close. You got to think that the AHL record is probably, it can't be much more than kind of in that 20 to 25 win range, right, Dave? But Yaroslav Askarov, like, we know he's a first round pick. You wonder how long it's going to be before he's in the NHL. His numbers, I was just taking a look in the AHL this year, have been incredible. Mm-hmm. And obviously UC Saros has got the net there, for the foreseeable future, but we know that, his numbers haven't been as good. And I don't believe Askarov has played in the NHL. I might be wrong about that.
I think he might have had a game or 2.
Yeah. Just checking here. Askarov has played 2 games this year.
Yeah.
And 1 win, and he's got a .943 save percentage, but 20 wins, 6 losses, and 1 tie this year with a 2.12 goals against average in the AHL. So Askarov is 21 years old, and we've talked a lot about how good Thomas Milic has been as a 20-year-old AHL rookie, but Askarov, Dave, I think it's not going to be much longer than a year, if that, before he's playing in the NHL, because I mean, he's just been excellent for Milwaukee, but they've got a lot of good players: Mark Jankowski, Denis Gurianov.
And they didn't Ezzy. They didn't even have. They just got Jankowski back from Nashville, and he didn't even play today. They didn't even put him in the lineup. So just think about how much more deadly they could have been, had they been. But you look, Askarov's a really good. They're a good team. It's Captain Obvious. They're a good team. They've won 17 games in a row. So the Moose fall, the Jets fall. Moose will be back at it. The Jets are back at it tomorrow, which means Ezzy and not Ezzy. Sorry, Ezzy's not on tomorrow. Drew and I are back tomorrow night. I'll be at the game.
Drew's finally back from his vacation.
Yeah, Drew. La-di-da, Mr. Mandel. So
he's only been gone for like 4 nights.
Well, he's missed I think he's missed the last 3 post-game shows or joined us late. Whatever it is, doesn't count unless you're on for the full amount of time.
Well, he joined us Saturday, but then he left for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, we don't like that. But what we do like is all of our sponsors, and big thanks to all of them. Big thank you to all the sponsors of Illegal Curve who make the post-game show, the Saturday show, Ezzy, and the website, illegalcurve.com, a possibility. They are in no particular order. Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Grid Park. Use code Illegal Curve to park for free. Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Betway, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rolly's Transfer, and Farmery Beer. Farmery Beer, home of the IC Beer.
Patrick's right, by the way. It is dark now. Continue on, though, Dave. It is dark.
I was going to say quickly, support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. But,
sorry, I screwed you up there.
Yeah, you did. You kind of jumped in the middle of the sponsor read, but that's okay. That's fine. We appreciate the sponsors. We appreciate all the comments from all of you. So if you can, go on the I feel like a broken record here. Can you still say broken record? Broken CD player, broken MP3.
Broken
I'm a broken
vinyl.
MP3.
You could say broken LP.
I feel like a broken MP3 right now because I keep saying, can someone, anyone, please, I beseech you, leave a comment on the podcast on
Sound like
iTunes.
a broken laser disc, Dave.
I'm something all right. Anyways, but thanks everyone for joining us, for spending your Monday afternoon and now early evening here on the Illegal Curve post-game show. I'm Dave Minuk. He's Ezzy Ginsburg. We'll be back at it tomorrow night when the Jets take on the Wild here in Winnipeg. And of course, illegalcurve.com. We don't ever stop. 24 hours, Jets news, Moose news, all the latest
24/7, 365, right, Dave M?
Exact, Amando. Well, I take a weekend off in the summer, but
actually 24/7, 366 this year.
Yeah, I was going to say leap year for the IC. Anyways, thanks a lot for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll be back tomorrow right after the Jets and Wild. Have a good night.